Hi there! It is time for a tutorial how to use the ACE19 EEG headset with the free EEG32 amplifier. Here we have the headset and the amplifier combination, and we can see on the back of the amplifier there is a USB cable, and that USB cable is only for power, and when I plug that in, the device powers on. And the moment you plug it in, it starts transmitting data through this red LED, which is the optical interface. And so the optical cable plugs into that. And on the other side of the optical cable, you have the USB dongle, and the cable goes in there and the USB dongle goes into your computer. Then the next thing that we have to do is prepare the sponges. And here we have to understand a few things very precisely, very closely. So this is where it gets very specific. Here we have the sponges, and the sponges have three different lengths. Let's see, we have the long dark blue sponge, we have the medium length light blue sponge, and we have the short dark blue sponge. And they are intended for different positions in the headset. So here I've made a single position of the headset, and you'll see that at the bottom there is a cone, and that cone will protrude through the hair and touch the scalp. And the sponge is going to go in there. And if you look closely, you'll see in the headset, in the back of the head, on the O and P positions, there is a longer cone than what we see here. And those positions will take the long dark blue sponges. Then in the middle, the T and C positions, they will have a cone of this length, the medium length, and they will take the medium length light blue sponge. And then in the front, the F and FP positions. In the F positions, there's a shorter than this cone, and those will take the short dark blue sponges. And in the front, FP1 and FP2, they don't have a cone at all, and they also take the short dark blue sponges. And so the correct sponge is important, but then also how do we place the sponge? Now I've cut a little window into this position here so we can see what's happening. And this dark thing here is the electrode. And that electrode needs to be touched by the sponge. So I've grabbed the light blue medium length sponge here. And you can see I'm leaving about 1 millimeter at the end. So the tip of the tweezers is not sticking out, the sponge is sticking out by 1 millimeter. And then we insert it into the position, and you can see now the sponge is firmly pressing up against the electrode. And now with my thumb, I'm going to hold the sponge in place while I am pulling the tweezers out. And now still the sponge is firmly pressed against the electrode, and it is sticking out. It also needs to stick out here a little bit by 2 millimeters. And so now we will get a clean signal. However, if I do this with less attention, and I just kind of like put it in there, right now the sponge is almost touching the electrode, but not quite. And that means you will not get any signal. So you need to put the attention into placing every sponge properly. This is where most mistakes are made. Almost all mistakes are in this area. So now let's do it for the whole headset. Alright, so I like to do this in a systematic way. I'm going to start here in the back with O1, O2, P7, P3, PZ, P4, and P8. And then I move on to the light blue sponges. and you go in T7, T3, sorry, C3, C1, C2, this is C2, C4, and T8. Moving on to the frontal positions. F7, F3, FZ, F4, and F8, and then the central position, and you can see FP1 is flat, doesn't have a cone. I'll put a sponge in there, and the same thing with FP2, no cone, sponge goes in there. All right, so now the sponges are in place. Next stage is with the syringe with the saline. So now I want to make sure that I don't drip anything on the amplifier, and I like to go in from the bottom, so I will put the syringe next to the sponge in that kind of position, and you can see the sponge going dark blue. It turns a shade darker as it saturates with saline. You want it to the point where it wants to start dripping, and it is okay if it drips a bit. Of course, you want to make sure that the amplifier stays dry. There. And also very important at this stage is you want to be very systematic to make sure that every sponge gets properly saturated and you don't skip any sponges. It's very easy to accidentally skip one sponge, and if you do that, that position will not give you any signal. So if you have a systematic way, I just start from the back with the O positions and the P positions, and then central positions. And now it is time for the frontal positions. You can actually, like I'm doing now, you can invert the headset. I don't always do that, but it certainly makes better on camera. And the last three. All right, now all the sponges are saturated. I will again invert the headset. And now I'll put the battery pack in my pocket, and let's switch. I'm going to start the recorder. Let's call this test. Start recording. And now you can see here it is counting the seconds that it has recorded, so that means it is indeed recording. And now we're going to open that recording in EDF browser, go to open stream, and here we can find that file. I'm just going to add all signals, and of course we don't see anything because there are no bandpass filters yet. So I'm going to load a montage which does not have a 50 Hertz filter. So these are the signals without any noise filtering, without filtering for the line noise. Alright, I also have my abrasive gel handy at this point. And I want to make some space so that my hair is free. And now, put it on the headset, like so. There is some dripping, some saline is coming down my forehead, and that is fine. And now I have to slide everything into its correct positions. And we want to make sure that we are centered. Right now we're not centered, we have to shift it a little bit this side. I always like to pull down positions C3 and C4. And I would like FP1 and FP2 a little lower there, that's it. Even. And now I'm going to put a smidgen of abrasive gel on my finger. That's enough, really. I mean, that's actually a lot. And really scrub it into my earlobe. And the other earlobe. And now put on the ear clips. And you'll see the signal is going to start looking pretty good. There's our signal. Now I like to, if you move the electrode positions perpendicular to the direction of the hair, then they kind of burrow under the hair and you'll get a very good signal because it is moving the hair aside and sort of getting really in there. All right, what do we have? I would say that's looking pretty good, isn't it? Keep in mind there are there's only a bandpass filter, in this case 3 to 45 Hertz, that's the way I like it. But there is no 50 Hertz notch filter whatsoever. I'm going to sit down on the chair and then let's see what happens when I'm sitting quietly. Of course, move the mouse. I can see there's some throbbing, some heartbeat, and that is just that's actually physiological. There we go. Some eye blinks. I'll clench my jaw. And I will close my eyes for a few seconds. All right. So there we had some alpha waves, primarily in the back. Now I would like to show you briefly what it looks like enable a 50 Hertz filter. I just enabled a 50 Hertz filter and it changes nothing to the signal. Why? Because we have a clean signal. So this is how clean the signal can be if we take care of everything properly. That's the story. Good luck with recording. Let me know how it goes. If you need any help, reach out, comment, or directly contact me. Good luck.